that's what I
I'm a little under the weather, so I apologize, but as they say, the show must go on. So here we are. Thank you for coming out today. I want to call to order our first quarter Police Advisory Review Committee meeting. And this is an important time in our country, a lot of turmoil, as it always is. But we come here with the spirit of collaboration, and we're going to move in that same understanding. So I'll pass to start with the vote.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here today. As Jerry said, to our first quarter meeting. Before we begin, we do have a few new faces at the table, so we want to take a moment to do a few introductions, and if we could please start with Captain, please.
Hello, my name is Captain Brian Evans. I've been with the police department for about 25 years now. Just recently transferred to the Office of Professional Standards from our Management Services Bureau. So I'm glad to be here and nice to meet each of you.
I am Brooklyn Sawyers-Belk, and I recently joined the police department, and I serve as the Deputy Chief of Professional Standards. It's a newly created role, and I'm excited to be here and work with you all. Thank you.
Yes.
Mark Fortner, Assistant Chief in KPD for 30 years. Paul Noel, Police Chief. I'm Ron Mills. I've been here for a while with the City Law Department.
All right, committee members. And the only reason why I'm saying this is because we have new staff in the back, and then, of course, for the community, just they can put a face with name.
I'm Heidi Vargas. I'm an attorney here in Knoxville.
Thank you, everyone. And
Sorry.
I
Jonathan.
left the best for last.
I'm Jonathan Haskell, Director of Yoke, and on the committee since last year sometime.
Thank you.
So I'm here. All right. This meeting is about communication, so we want to set some rules of decorum. Those who wish to speak during public forum should sign up by contacting the Parc office ahead of time or by signing up in person prior to the start of our meeting at 6 o'clock. All speakers will be given 5 minutes. Please do not use profanity and remember to stay on topic. Those who fail to adhere to those rules may be ruled out of order and asked to step away from the podium. For those who are listening, please note that you may not disrupt a public meeting from the audience. Those who do may be asked to leave. And we appreciate everyone's respect for these rules.
The next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. At this time, we don't have form in order to approve minutes, so we will push that for a later time, and we'll move forward with the executive director's report. My apologies. Then we will move to approve the minutes for quarter 4. Anyone in favor? Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then we will approve the minutes. And now we will move forward with the executive director's report.
Can you all hear me? I'm not a microphone person at all. Can you guys in the back hear me okay? All right, perfect. Sounds good. All right, so for the executive director's report for January 1st to March 31st for the first quarter review, audit of discipline process, the committee audits all completed investigations from the internal affairs unit of the Knoxville Police Department. The results of the first quarter audits are as follows. Total cases audited by the committee were 12, officers disciplined 9, civilian employees disciplined. There were none this quarter. Disciplines imposed by KPD, written reprimand 0, oral reprimand, 2 officers, verbal counseling, 2 officers, suspension, 4 officers, and 1 termination. We also make note that 2 officers resigned prior to completion of the internal affairs investigation. As for audits of KPD policies and procedures, the Executive Director reviewed the following policies and procedures as a part of the evaluation of the internal affairs investigations and complaints. General Orders 1.6, use of force, 2.3, prisoner restraint, search and transportation, 2.16, digital audio video recording equipment, 3.11, traffic crash investigation, 4.8, procedures for the use of controlled informants. As for code of conduct and standard operating procedures, 1.00, insubordination, 1.02, neglect of duty, 1.03, knowledge of laws and regulations, 1.19, unbecoming conduct, 1.21, unsatisfactory performance, 1.24, use of force, 1.25, use of weapons, 1.33, submitting false reports, 1.34, processing property and evidence negligent actions, 1.45, procedures of the use of controlled informants, 2.07, truthfulness, 2.09, respect between ranks, 4.06, arrest, transportation, and detention of prisoners, and 4.10, unconscious persons. For advocacy, the Executive Director met with the following individuals: Denise Dean, with a discussion on race equity in the community, Charles Lomax with the Knoxville Area Urban League, Jen Kaminsky and Jackie Kittrell with the Community Mediation Center, Deputy Chief Brooklyn Bell, City Councilwoman Amelia Parker, and Chief Paul Noel. For networking, speaking engagements, trainings, and etc., the Executive Director attended pre-disciplinary and disciplinary hearings this past quarter. Within your packet, I provided an excerpt of the annual report. It's a 22-page document, and it is available on our website, but I did want to just kind of do a quick overview of the stats that we ended with last year. Total internal affairs cases reviewed by Parc from September 22nd, 1998 to present. Parc received 2,720 complaints. Total complaint cases reviewed and closed since September 22nd, 1998. 2,657. And you can see the breakdown of that information. Jumping to number 6, the number of IAU cases concluded by the Executive Director and majority of the committee without further review or request of additional information were 6. Internal affairs cases reviewed by the Executive Director and committee with additional information requested was 18. Ethnic and gender origin of case complaints received for 2022. We had complaints from 7 white males and 8 white females, totaling 15, 5 black males, and then 5 black females, totaling 1. We had a complaint from 1 Hispanic male. In total, there were 26 complainants that last year. Lastly, for the nature of cases, most of our complaints that we received were due to failure to investigate. There were 8 complaints involving failure to investigate, followed by 6 complaints related to unlawful arrest, detention, search, and seizure. In total, we had 31 complaints involving the nature of cases that are listed on that list. And that concludes the Executive Director's report.
Thank you. At this time, we will have the KPD report from Chief Noel.
Thank you all. Can you all hear me without the mic?
Yes.
All right. I appreciate you all giving me the opportunity to report out to you all today. I'm going to try to be brief. I know we have a very long agenda. Chief Belt's going to talk a little bit about the progress that she's made with the Office of Professional Standards. I just want to let you all know I'm very pleased at the pace it's going. We're clearing all cases, changed the name from Internal Affairs to Professional Standards.
I'm sorry, can you use the mic? Because I can't hear him. I want to hear his report loud and clear.
And we are in the process now of building policies, procedures, and practices to adjudicate these cases fairly and more expediently. We're moving along with our consultant work with 21CP Solutions. They're reviewing and updating policies right now. When those policies have been completed, we're going to start posting them on our website when we roll out our brand new website in the 11th office. So as we get through those policies with them, we'll be posting them on the website. And we're also creating a policy review schedule. So right now what happens is these policies, when they're updated, they just sit really until there's a problem. We're looking at them again. We're going to be looking at these policies now on a regular basis. Some policies will be looked at annually, some policies might be looked at every 2 or 3 years, depending on how significant they are. But every policy will have a review schedule where we go through those policies. That's sorely needed because right now what we're finding is we have some policies that have not been touched for a very long time. So that's something that's really important for us. We're moving into the new public safety building right now. Most of our units will be in at the end of this week. Some of the public-facing units, like our telecert, my hit and run, and our records won't be moved in until later in June, just because the lobby of that area is not ready yet. But most of us are moving in to the new building. That's really been going well. Training is something that we really focused on. We just started the active bystandership for law enforcement training. The staff went through that training program. The reason it took so long for us to start that was they really got an influx of new agencies that applied, so they hit a moratorium on training new instructors. They were also in the process of revamping their curriculum. They were doing a curriculum review, so we couldn't get any instructors trained. We have now had 8 instructors, including myself, as of right now that are trained, and we're starting the process of training the entire department on that training. That will probably take up until the rest of the year. The reason is we train in very small groups. So we only train in classes of about 10 people. So in order for us to be able to do that, it's going to take a little while to get that done. But we're really excited to have that training started. Captain Sammy Schaefer, the commander of our Central District, is attending the Police Leadership Academy out of the University of Chicago. This is a brand new training program that the DOJ has set up. And it's a 6-month curriculum. It's hands-on, interactive, and it actually ends with a capstone project that they'll have to complete in our community. We're super excited to have Captain Schaefer be a part of that program. And finally, with training, I have been asked to be on the board of the Department of Justice's Knowledge Lab, which is, I think, going to be pretty good for Knoxville. It's allow us to get a head start of getting on a lot of training programs that we normally would have access to. Community-wise, we're trying something new that's not been done here before. We're doing monthly district commander forums. So this will be an opportunity for the members of the community to sit down with the leadership of the district. So right now, our officers and district leadership, we go out to community meetings all across the city all the time. But this will be a monthly meeting that we host, where you'll be able to sit down with the district leadership and learn why we make certain decisions, and if you have certain problems or concerns about your neighborhood, we'll be available as well. Each district rotates once a month. We just had the Central District. Prior to that, we had the East District forum, and then now coming up will be the West District. And we'll move those meetings around at different locations within the district as we do them, but it will be something we do every month. As long as the community wants to do that, we'll continue to do that. And again, I think that's a great opportunity for members of the community to get to know their district leadership. Community walks, we're continuing our community walks. The team just came from Montgomery Village. We started at the Boys and Girls Club. We walked all through the development. We actually today we handed out a lot of footballs and basketballs, a lot of stuff. Talk to the residents, talk to kids. It's really another opportunity for us to continue to engage with the community. It's something we can continue to do. In recruiting, we're pushing really hard on our recruiting with digitally advertising. And we also want to remind everybody about our cadet program as well, where we can hire someone between 18 and 21, and which is the age before they would be eligible to start the police academy. Come join our team, get to see behind the scenes of what it's like to be a KPD officer. That pays $36,000 a year, and we're able to, if they want to go to college, we can work around their college schedule as well. It's a great program, and we have positions open for that right now. So if anybody knows someone between the ages of 18 to 21 that's interested in becoming a police officer, but is not yet old enough to get into the police academy, this is a great opportunity to come earn a really good wage and kind of kick the tires on whether or not they want to be a police officer. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Find the date for the commander forum.
they're on our social media, so if you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we put that up there on a regular basis. We just had the Central District Forum, I think that was last Thursday.
How old do you have to be to apply?
So in order to be a police officer in the state of Tennessee, you have to be 21 by the time you graduate from the police academy. So with our cadet program, we can actually hire you at 18. And we'll hire you at 18, make $36,000 a year, and we rotate you through different jobs in the police department. So actually, if someone comes on at 18, not only do they get a head start and they get a chance to earn a really good wage, but they get the opportunity to work in almost every aspect of the police department. And they really get a heads up, a kind of a head start on other people that we hire and just walk into the academy because they're really very familiar with what's going on. And they have a significant amount of experience before they even get the academy.
Thank you so much, Chief, for your report. At this time, we'll have the subcommittee reports. We will begin with the audiovisual, read by Jonathan.
This is the audio video report for the first quarter of the 12 internal affairs cases reviewed by the Parc. 7 cases included documented audio and video recordings based on body-worn cameras and/or the incident took place in the vicinity of officers' patrol vehicles within a recordable range. The audio-video subcommittee submits the following findings from our first quarter review. File number 1, Internal Affairs Case number 22-2875. The officer failed to activate his body camera for the duration of an encounter where he used force. The officer also turned his body camera off prematurely. File number 2, Internal Affairs Case number 22-2886. The officer did not have his body camera audio on during contact with community members. File number 5, Internal Affairs Case number 22-2876. The officer failed to activate his audio throughout the duration of communication with a community member. File number 6, Internal Affairs Case number 21-2849. One officer failed to unmute his body camera during the traffic stop, whereas the other officer failed to unmute his body camera during the arrest of an individual. File number 8, Internal Affairs Case number 22-2872. The audio-video equipment for the involved officer was functioning properly and captured the incident being reviewed. File number 11, Internal Affairs Case 22-2877. The audio-video equipment for the involved officer was functioning properly and captured the incident being reviewed. And case number 12, file number 12, Internal Affairs Case number 22-2887. The audio-video equipment for the involved officer was functioning properly and captured the incident being reviewed. Body camera and patrol car footage was not applicable to the review of cases 3, 4, 7, 9, and 10. In summary, the Knoxville Police Department's General Order 2.16 on digital audio-video recording equipment details that officers and vehicles equipped with audio-video recording equipment shall be always in a record mode when there is potential for contact with a person in the community, whether on duty or during secondary employment. The purpose of digital audio-video recording equipment is to monitor all contacts with a person in the community in all situations possible. In addition, Knoxville Police Department requires sergeants to review officers' audio and visual footage twice per month at random to ensure that their equipment is operating properly.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. We will now have the racial profile report by Jared.
Thank you. This is our first quarter, which is January 1st to March 31st. And during the first quarter review, Parc did not receive any community complaints or audit any internal affairs cases involving racial profiling or bias-based policing. The policies that are reviewed under those headings are General Order 1.41, bias-based policing, and I'll read that. policy. It is the policy of Knoxville Police Department that we are committed to preserving the peace and maintaining order in the city of Knoxville by practicing bias-free policing and respecting the rights and dignity of all citizens. And number 2, definition. Bias-based profiling. The practice of stopping, detaining, or searching a person based solely upon a common trait or a group that include, but is not limited to, their race, color, ethnicity, age, gender, sexual orientation, religion, economic status, or any other identifiable group characteristic. That concludes the report.
Thank you so much, Jared. And last, we will have our operations report by Heidi.
Operations report for the first quarter, January through March 31st, 2023. Cases reviewed, KPD cases, closed IAU and/or referral action form cases, 12. Parc. Community complaints received via the Parc office, 13. Community complaints referred to IAU or a captain, 5. Total cases received, 25. Total cases pending, 2. Total cases closed, 28. That includes 5 complaints from the fourth quarter 2022. Resolution of community complaint cases, Parc staff, 7. KPD, 4. Mediation, Parc staff and KPD, 1. Referrals to appropriate agencies, 5. And this concludes the operations report for the first quarter.
All right. Amy, are you ready?
Just a second.
Okay, all right, take your time. I'll go ahead and get on the Lily and let them know how great you are and all that stuff. No pressure. No, but just to give a few seconds while she prepares. Parc is Police Advisory Review Committee. Oftentimes we get sort of stuck on the review, but the advisory piece I feel is the secret sauce, if you will, of making Parc a very special entity in the state. And working with the community and working collaboratively with other agencies in the city and possibly even beyond, we can do great work and bring, I really believe, some impactful work, or impactful impact. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm an amateur, so bear with me. But bring some impact back to our communities to truly change for the better. And because I've often said this, and I'll repeat it many more times, I'm sure in the future. The purpose of Parc is not to be adversarial with the police department. It is actually to improve the relationship that the police department has with the community by being the voice of the people, informing them what we want. Because we need to define how we want to be policed. And with that being said, Emily has some great research that she's done, and we're going to hand the ball to her.
Thank you. That was a great introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Boyer. I was an intern for Parc this past semester and now for the summer. And I want to thank Tiffany for allowing me to do this research. It was initiated, let's see if this works. Yay. It was initiated by request of the Knoxville Area Urban League, based on their national association, the National Urban League's report, which is 21 Pillars for Redefining Public Safety and Restoring Community Trust. So the purpose of this presentation is, the research is 2 parts. So this presentation will be an overview of what we have already, an assessment of where Knoxville's at, what we have already been building to contribute to this coalition. And yeah. These are the key themes that the 21 pillars are housed under. I'll let you all read those, but I also want to mention that I'm not going to be going through every single pillar. That would take forever. And also, I want to mention that the report is national in nature, its recommendations and policies at times, so I will be skipping some because they're just not applicable to our local police in Knoxville. So starting with Theme 1 and Pillar 1, they advise to support alternative modes for violence prevention. So the semi-newly formed Turn Up Knox Violence Interruption Center is a great example of that, as a community organization dedicated to mediating and preventing violence in our city, as well as East Tennessee Crime Stoppers, which works with law enforcement, anonymously reporting, and trying to intervene in local crime. It also recommends investing in social services, which is a really important part of the justice system as well. So building upon existing assets, like you see in the screen. So organizations that are doing that in our community now are the Knoxville Area Urban League, the CAC, and KCDC. So Pillar 2 talks about emphasizing prevention of public over taking arrest quotas. So Tennessee, that's strictly prohibited, so PPD does not have a ticket or arrest quota. And they also have a general order that provides guidelines for all members of the department in other options besides arrest. They also advise for collaboration with community groups. So there's multiple examples of that. Chief Bill's report, I think, is a great example of that at Parc meetings. KPD and Parc's operating agreement establishes also that cooperation. That was recent as of last year. And then also the appointment of Deputy Chief Development position, and as Chief Mill mentioned, the district commander forums. This pillar is big, so this is another one. Also, they advise to establish diversionary programs for low-level offenses. So Tennessee in 2018 gave Knoxville a grant through the Pre-Arrest Diversion Infrastructure Program to kickstart this initiative, which gave way to the McNabb Center Behavioral Health Urgent Care Center. I spoke with one of the representatives recently about it. So how it works for those who aren't familiar, to my understanding, is that there are 9 pre-approved misdemeanors that are low-level nonviolent, and if a person agrees, they can be taken to this center for intensive care instead of going to jail. This is with the goal of getting people with not a lot of options or maybe healthcare to get to treatment. This is extremely successful, and they receive around 400 to 500 people per year. And then Pillar 3, codifying anti-discrimination policies. We touched on this policy already with the reports, and that's in General Order 1.41, bias-based policing. So this is entrenched in PPD's policies, which is really important to remember. And then also addressing the needs of individuals experiencing mental health crisis. So we have multiple ways that Knoxville is addressing this. McNabb Mobile Crisis Unit as a 24/7 response team, KPD's co-response unit that pairs an officer with a mental health expert. We have the Knoxville Task Force established by Mayor Kincannon that during the pandemic to address local mental health issues in our community. And then crisis intervention and de-escalation training. So as Chief Mill mentioned, they're starting their active bystandership training. And then also, we're going to touch on later more of the de-escalation techniques and training. Okay, theme 2, accountability. Making sure that disciplinary matters are accountable is important. So all disciplinary matters are determined by the chief and not police unions. And then if they involve suspension or termination, they refer to the city's civil service merit board as an extra layer of review. Pillar 8 is talking about Parc, so civilian community-based review board. So Parc is registered under the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, and created in 1998, is the longest standing community oversight board in Tennessee. So Parc reviews, monitors, and investigates community complaints regarding police misconduct. And that's something I think Knoxville should really post about. Pillar 9 is, and theme 3 generally is about changing police policies, which I know the Office of Professional Standards in general is looking at. Pillar 9 is about use of force policies. In specific, General Order 1.6 covers what they recommend in deadly force being the last resort, supporting and promoting using de-escalation techniques instead. And the use of force continuum that KDT has that aids officers in assessing what level of force is needed based on the threat or the level of resistance, I think helps with that as well. And this is just a graphic I made earlier in the year. There was another campaign specifically about use of force policies, advocating for 8 changes to police departments' use of force policies, and Knoxville had completed all 8 of them. So I thought that was great to mention. Pillar 10 is also this, so in chokeholds, no knock warrants, and shooting moving vehicles. This is covered in the use of force policy as well, and then Tennessee's ban no knock warrants in the state. Theme 4 is about transparency and data collection. So they recommend having some sort of database for citizen complaints against police. Parc has a community complaint database that we operate for this purpose and recognizing patterns about investigations and findings and such. And then mandating uniform reporting when in auditing of lethal force incidents. So TBI automatically investigates officer-involved deaths, and Tennessee Highway Patrol automatically investigates officer-involved crashes. Pillar 15, we already kind of went over this with our audio and video report, but General Order 2.16 mandates that officers, whenever there's a chance of being in contact with a community member, has their body camera footage on and dash camera. And tampering with that is also prohibited under that general order. And Parc also has direct access to that footage upon request when we're investigating a community. So Pillar 18 is a bit different. Obviously, you see it says adopting the National Police Accreditation System, but I still think it's applicable in some of the stuff they recommend. So the National Decertification Index, Tennessee's Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission is the agency tasked with reporting those numbers to the national index. And under Tennessee law enforcement agencies have to report to post within 24 hours after a law enforcement officer is arrested. And KPEs has informed me that they refer to the NDI when they are making hiring decisions, which is also important. Finally, Pillar 21, so increasing diversity and equity in law enforcement. So creating a workforce that is able to address and interact with all kinds of communities that we have in Knoxville is really important. KP's increasing efforts in hiring diverse recruits. I think in Chief Mill's report, he said they hired one of the most diverse groups of recruits in a long time. And then implementing best practices with training for cultural competency. So that's also ongoing, required annually in service and specialty training throughout the year. And they've had several classes specifically about that. So to conclude from here, I've tried to give an overview of what we have already in Knoxville, what we're building in terms of creating a more responsible, just system here. From here, the second part is what we're missing, what could be changed. So policy evaluations and suggestions that I've seen through my research will be presented to the committee for their consideration. And from there, they're going to determine their own recommendations at a later date. Thank you for your time.
That was the usual.
Y'all can clap, it's okay. It's administrative, but it's scholastic, I should say, but still, we appreciate it. And our next speaker is relatively new to the area and to this work, but Deputy Chief Brooklyn Belk. And I just want to take 1 second to say professional standards is a very important role and I want to give kudos to the department for taking the effort, because they say, show me your budget and I'll show you where your focus is. So for spending the money on this role, it tells me that we're looking for a more positive future in professionalizing the policing of Knoxville. So without further ado, Deputy Chief, please.
Thank you so much. So I've been asked to introduce myself, and I am Brooklyn Sawyers-Belk. I am the Deputy Chief of Professional Standards for the Knoxville Police Department. I joined very recently. I've been on for approximately 12 weeks, and it's been very busy 12 weeks. I'm going to tell you about some of the things that I've worked on, but Ms. Davidson asked that I begin with my background. Although I'm new to the Knoxville Police Department, I have practiced law for over 16 years. As a licensed attorney, I worked on a variety of things that I will not bore you with, but I will say that I've worked with law enforcement throughout that time. I was a federal prosecutor for the United States Department of Justice. I worked at headquarters in the Criminal Trial Division as a trial attorney, and I worked in different U.S. attorneys' offices, including here in the Eastern District of Tennessee. All of that to say I tried some cases over the years. And I worked with law enforcement in other capacities, Chicago Police Department, NYPD. For the Knoxville Police Department, the chief has asked me to look at policies, procedures, and make sure that they are consistent with constitutional and criminal law and are institutionalized in the department so that both officers and the community know what the rules are that we play by. In addition to that, he has charged me with managing internal affairs, as you all have known it until today perhaps. It is now called the Office of Professional Standards. And the entire team is here tonight because we want to send the message to everyone in the Knoxville community that this organization is very important to us in having a working relationship. And I want to introduce you to all the team members. To my right is the commander of OPS, Brian Evans. He's a captain in the police department. He has almost 30 years of experience, and he's worked with other departments outside of Knoxville as well as in private industry. He recently returned from the Department of Justice FBI Academy, where he learned a variety of information regarding internal investigations. He is invaluable to the Office of Professional Standards. Behind me is Investigator Phyllis Tonkin, Sergeant Andrew Markham, Sergeant Michael Dabbled, and my legal assistant, Emily White. They make up the team of professional standards. In addition to sending a message to you of how important this is to our team, we also collaborate as a team on all matters that come before the office. And I want to share that with you because I believe it's important to you as well as it is to the chief and the entire department to know that decisions are not made based on the decision making of one individual person, but rather under this team, we come together and we collaborate so the decisions have diverse inputs. We all have different professional and life experiences so that we can come together and vet the cases that come before us. We've worked on a number of other things that may be of interest to you, and I'm going to summarize just a couple for the sake of time. Transparency is very important to the chief and by extension to this office. We are working on creating a variety of work products that will allow us to be as transparent as possible from the moment a complaint or concern comes into the office to the moment that it is closed and will eventually come before this committee. In addition to that, case handle time is very important because both officers and citizens deserve finality. So we are working on reducing the amount of time it takes from the moment a complaint comes in to the moment that it is closed. I am happy to tell you that as of recently, some cases have been handled as quick as 50 days. Also, the number of cases that we are carrying, that we are investigating at this moment, are 5 open cases. Although I was not here, I'm told in the past that sometimes that workload was as large as double digits. So I'm very proud of that number. It is early on in this process. The chief is approaching his 1-year anniversary, which is early by most people's measures. And certainly the Office of Professional Standards is in its infancy. So we ask that you bear with us, but those are some of the things that we are focused on. And if I had to summarize it in one sentence, it would be transparency, fairness, and objectivity. And we believe that that's what you will see as you continue to have these quarterly meetings. It's a pleasure to work with you, and thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself.
Thank you so much for that information. Do we have any questions from the committee for Deputy Bell? Then we will move forward with the case matters addressed by the committee. File 1. Internal Affairs Case 22-2875, and the first question reads, are new employers notified of an officer's findings if they quit in the middle of an investigation?
So as we revise our policies, we are creating a new category of separation in the department called RUI, which will stand for resign or retired under investigation. So if someone calls us, or someone leaves in the middle of an investigation, or if they leave to avoid an investigation, they would be considered had not left in good standing, and have an RUI next to their name. So if an employer would contact us and ask us what their status was, we would say they resigned or retired while under investigation.
Are there any additional questions for file 1 that aren't listed that anyone would like to add? Then we'll move forward to file number 2, Internal Affairs Case 22-2886. First question reads, has the policy failure described on page 11 of the file been adequately addressed with the chief's new order regarding minor accidents?
Yes, so policy team was convened to review all of our policies, and effective September 1st, 2022, policy 3.11 traffic crash investigations clearly articulates what crashes we investigate and what crashes we don't. So effective with that policy, minor fender benders, we don't investigate those anymore, but we clearly lay out the ones we do have to investigate, which are hit and runs, accidents involving injury, fatalities, trapped or incapacitated persons, people who are suspected to be impaired, alcohol, drugs, crashes involving an unlicensed or uninsured driver, crashes resulting in a disabled vehicle on the roadway, and disturbances involving hazardous material, or government vehicles, including CAT CAT buses or school buses. So it's clearly laid out in that policy as of September 1st this year.
Next question, is a 1-day suspension in this case consistent with the department's progressive disciplinary structure?
Yes, it was. So this officer has 2 cases here. One case, the case we're looking at now, one case a little further, and we looked at both of those cases in totality, and absolutely was consistent with progressive discipline.
Next question, is it unusual for one officer to have multiple technical problems with audio-video equipment, or is it more likely user error? If technical problems are indeed the cause, what steps have been taken to address these recurring problems with equipment?
So officers should not be having regular technical issues. So, if the officers having problems with their equipment, they're required to report that. We can also see, if the camera, we dock the camera, if it's not working properly, we can see it on our end as well. So to answer your question, it is unusual.
If the officer has a history of not submitting reports and his direct supervisor has concerns about his performance since 2017, why did he only receive a 1-day suspension?
So when I'm considering discipline, there's many factors that I take in addition to the offense. And I believe the executive director is in on that this very hearing. But based upon the totality of the circumstances involved in the officer's performance, and including the fact that the officer had an outside personal issue going on at the time that impacted his performance, that one-day suspension was appropriate. I also want to add that in all of our suspensions, it's a 12-hour day that they work. So when they work one day, they're only working, when they're suspended for one day, it's more than just a normal 8-hour day that a normal person would work. They only work about 14 days a month. So, if we suspend someone for 3 days, that's the equivalent of a week's suspension or losing, half a paycheck.
Any additional questions before we move forward with the next case? Okay. File number 3, Internal Affairs Case 21-2857. First question reads, according to the affidavit, KPD was billing the car dealership. Should KPD have noticed the discrepancy sooner?
So we're in a process now of outsourcing all of our secondary employment to a private vendor. So right now we handle all of that in-house. There are many companies that handle this where they serve as the middleman between the potential employer that's seeking secondary employment and our officers. And right now we handle all of it in-house. So we're gonna outsource all of that. They will manage all of that for us. So once that comes, this problem will never happen again. I was not chief when this happened, and one of the first things that I saw when I came here was that we needed to get somebody else to be able to manage this for us and get us out of managing secondary.
I keep hearing feedback, that's why I'm scared to turn around. Is there a criteria for being able to get secondary employment as far as a cleaner record or no infractions on your record or anything like that?
So that's certainly something that we can take into effect when we're allowing officers to work secondary employment. So as a condition of discipline, I do have the ability to prohibit someone from working secondary employment.
But right now that policy doesn't exist.
So I can do that through discipline, yes. I absolutely can do that now.
I guess I don't want to beat this dead horse already, but so if I have 3 complaints in my record and I apply for secondary employment, would that be considered at this point today?
So if those cases were sustained and they came before me, one discipline that I can give to them is prohibiting them working secondary employment for a certain period of time. But what's not there is if they just get a complaint, it's not been adjudicated yet, they don't get sanctioned for that until they go through that discipline process. Yes, because all discipline other than reprimands, they have the opportunity to appeal. So that would have to go through the adjudication process first.
Thank you.
Chief, that sounds like a great idea to have that outsourced. Is it safe to assume that cost will be borne by the secondary employer in those cases?
Yes, so that's not going to cost us any money at all. So that's, the vendor charges a surcharge on top of what they would normally pay. And so it does not cost the city anything. So it's a no-brainer for us because it's no cost for us and they manage every aspect of this course.
Any additional questions? Okay, then we'll move forward to file 4. Internal Affairs Case 22-2890. Although the comments didn't arise of a sexual nature, will there be a conversation around making appropriate comments against staff? Additionally, what does constitute as harassment if reporting uncomfortable feelings around inappropriate comments are not enough?
I'll address this one. So the Knoxville Police Department has a harassment policy as well as a sexual harassment policy that's covered under General Order 1.36. And it provides, in summary, it's quite lengthy, but in summary, it provides a workplace that is free of harassment. That's a legal term, and I don't want to use this forum to go into all the ins and outs of what that legal definition provides. But in summary, the conduct has to have the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive working environment. Or two, that any unwanted sexual behavior that makes someone feel upset, scared, offended, or humiliated, or is meant to make them feel that way. During the course of this particular investigation, it was determined that the comments complained of were not of a sexual nature and therefore do not rise to the level provided by that legal definition.
Are there any additional questions before we move forward? File number 5, Internal Affairs Case 22-2876. First question reads, is the 2-day suspension consistent with the department's progressive disciplinary structure?
Yes, it is. So this is the same officer that was involved in the case at file 2. They happened relatively close together. So again, so just like in that case, with our progressive discipline policy, you consider numerous factors when rendering discipline, and in that, a 2-day suspension was absolutely appropriate, considering it was, in basically in conjunction with the 1-day suspension even for a very similar incident.
At what point does the department conclude that this officer is not responding to discipline?
Certainly not at this place yet. These incidents happened in relatively close proximity. The officer came in at the disciplinary hearing as the executive director was in there to witness, and there was some outside factors going on. The officer, I feel, has responded very positively to the conversations that I had with him at the disciplinary hearing. He's not reoffended, so we're certainly not at that place yet. And again, also when I'm factoring in discipline, the discipline has to be commensurate with the offense. That's one thing that civil service looks at when they review, just like Emily talked about in her presentation. Civil service has the ability to look at all discipline above a reprimand. So anytime I suspend someone or sanction them, take away secondary employment, take money out of their pocket, civil service has the ability to review that at a hearing. And the discipline has to be commensurate with the offense. And here, I absolutely believe the discipline was commensurate with the offense.
Any additional questions before we move forward? File number 6, Internal Affairs Case 22-2867. Do K-9 units search patrol vehicles for hidden drugs?
The short answer, I guess, is no. But if I could expand on that a little bit, we require our officers to search the vehicles prior to placing a prisoner or a suspect in the back of the vehicle. And then when they take that person out of the back of the vehicle, the officer is required to make a search of the vehicle as well. So without going into days and days worth of talking about K-9s, when we use K-9s, they search for scents, and they search as an area, not necessarily a specific place. So if somebody's been introduced to the back of a police car that has had drugs on them, has used drugs in the past, then the dog would probably alert on that, so it wouldn't give us any more detail than drugs were possibly present at some point or another. The same reason we don't use canines to search or sniff money, because most money at some point has come in contact with some type of drugs. It would give a false alert, so it really doesn't do us any good to continue with the search of a patrol car or a police car with canines.
Concerned about the equipment functioning properly, on page 19 of the file, there is a video monitor that is not functioning. On page 20, a metal detector, and later, the video software. Is this a normal situation?
I wouldn't say it's normal at all. Anytime those malfunctions take place, or we have equipment that's not working, we require the officers, first of all, to inspect their equipment prior to their shift to make sure that it's in working order. If something happens to that equipment during their shift, we have mechanisms in place where they report those errors or report those malfunctions, and we try as soon as we can to replace that equipment, to swap it out. And in some situations, if it's not safety related, then obviously then we would allow the attendant if they're required to make notification, and we try to change that out as soon as practical and possible.
It seems that the amount of narcotics that is on this person could have been discovered with a more thorough search before loading him into the transport. Maybe not all, but some. Does a policy change need to be made? It seems like an especially dangerous opportunity when the person is handcuffed in the front.
We reviewed the policy and determined that the search policy at that time did not need to be changed. As Chief Noel said a few minutes ago, not only are we just taking individual policies, but I guess there's a structure in place now where they're automatically reviewed. But in this particular instance, we didn't find that a policy change or a policy revision was needed for the search.
What would it take to have 2 officers in the transport vehicle? This is the second situation in the last year where a person in custody has died because the driver can't also keep an eye on the video monitors. In my opinion, we need to A, ensure that all compartments can be clearly seen on the video, and B, have someone monitoring the video during transport.
So right now, our prisoner wagons are branded, they're taken offline. The way our wagons are configured right now, there's 3 separate compartments in the back of the wagon. And it was very difficult, if not impossible, for the wagon drivers to be able to get in those small compartments and seatbelt prisoners in. So really what was happening in all practicality, we were not seatbelting the prisoners in because there just wasn't enough room. The wagon driver would have to climb over other prisoners to seatbelt prisoners in. It's just not something that's safe for the wagon driver, certainly not something that's comfortable for someone sitting in the wagon to have someone climb over them. So what we did was we took those wagons offline and we ordered new wagons that have one big compartment in the back instead of the 3 separate compartments. That one compartment is going to make it easier for the wagon driver to be able to see in the back through the camera. It's not feasible for us to have 2 wagon drivers. We have to double staffing, and it's just something that's not feasible. And I really do believe that new configuration, when it comes online, is going to be a lot better than the current configuration that we've taken offline due to the seatbelt issues.
I have a question. You guys can still hear me. Since I came on in this role, one of the things that I have just continuously wanted to address was the video equipment in the transportation wagons. So moving forward, knowing that we are getting a whole new set of wagons, what does the monitoring system look like?
I don't know the answer to that. Chief Powell, do you know? Can you answer that question?
Yes, so because we're going to one compartment, the Axon cameras could only hold up to five type of cameras. So now that we're condensing that down to basically 2 compartments in the wagon, we will be able to outfit them with Axon cameras once the new wagons get here. So it'll be the same as what a patrol vehicle will have.
So an updated system, essentially.
So the wagons didn't have the Axon system previously?
They did because we had multiple departments. Axon only allowed 5 operational, and to get moving forward, to get the one outside, there wasn't enough to put in there. So, but with these new configurations, we'll just have 1 room, so that's small enough or less areas to cover that Axon can cover. So that what the plan is, once the new wagons get here, we'll update them with Axon just as our approved.
Okay, follow-up question. The placement of the monitors is another thing. So I know that in the patrol cars, the laptops or the systems kind of sit within eye view. So in the current transportation wagons, they kind of sit down to the floor. So what does that visually look like?
So we're wanting, with the Axon system, we can actually put it on a laptop like it's in the cruisers, and then we'll construct something. That was a big thing that the wagon driver was saying it was too low, they had to look down. So we'll build something to put some type of a laptop, if you will, or an iPad at least, to get up and big frame so that they can see what you're doing. again, it won't be as many frames to look at because you've only got one compartment.
I had an additional, not that, this dead horse is getting deader by the second. But I too have had a long-term sort of question about our transportation. And I gave you accolades last time for taking it out before another tragedy was to happen. But is there a way that you can place the current pictures of what these things look like on the website? On the KPD website or KPD social media or whatever? And in addition, show what the new, I don't know if that's a security thing or what, but I think it's important that people understand, because we're saying 2 compartments, 5 compartments. I don't have a concept of what that looks like. So it would be really helpful, I think, for me anyway, and I think for many citizens to understand what someone goes through, because luckily most people will never ride in the back of one of those as a potential being arrested. So I think it's important if we could share what that looks like, if that's possible.
I'd be happy to show the committee. I don't know, do we still have the wagons, or they?
No, sir, they're gone.
They're gone. So I'd be happy to show the committee the new configuration again. I don't know if I want to, I didn't really have to think through a little bit before I commit to posting pictures of it, publicly, but I'd absolutely be happy to show the committee.
I'd like it.
And I have one more comment. I too can see repetitive issues in the wagon, and I'm sympathetic. This has nothing to do with this case, previous cases before your time, but there were complaints, I don't feel good, and the response from the officer was, we've got people who say they've got complaints and they're not real complaints. If I stopped every time someone said something's wrong, then I'd never get to where I'm supposed to be. But in these cases that we saw, there really was something going on. I don't know what I'm trying to say with this comment, but maybe beefed up training about how to recognize medical emergencies, but it's not the first real serious wagon issue that I've seen. And I'm sympathetic to not wanting to stop every time someone cried wolf, but this was not wolf, this was serious.
Absolutely. So I agree with you. So if someone's having a medical issue, we have a responsibility to people that are in our custody to make sure that we get them the help they need. Now, we do need to make sure that we're safe as well. If we're on the interstate, for example, it's not safe to pull over on the side of the interstate. The wagon driver's by himself. It's got a wagon full of people. We need to make sure that we're not in a situation where we're putting our employee at risk as well. But I absolutely agree with you that this is something, when we get these new wagons back online, we're going to be doing some training with our wagon drivers to make sure that they understand the requirements of the people that they have in their custody.
Yeah, horse guy. And are wagon drivers specifically trained in CPR, first aid? And are there AEDs available in the wagons?
Yeah, everyone gets basic CPR training. I don't believe that we have the automatic defibrillators in the back of the wagons. We don't have enough cars, do we? Chief?
No, sir, we've got a select few patrol vehicles in the field, but not in the wagon.
I think that may be a nice addition to have that in case of an emergency for best practice.
Sure, I'd love to have more of those. They're very expensive, so if there's any medical facility, anybody wants to donate something to this, I'd love to have one in every one of our vehicles. They're just very expensive to go out there and purchase.
So let's start with something more.
Sure, that'd be great. If any medical facility, any supply we want to donate those to us, I'd love to have them.
Talk to your boss.
Now, maybe about 20 million off the violence interruption fund.
Is it standard practice for inmates to be left alone in a wagon for 20 to 30 minutes at a given time? What are the policies around protection when a person enters police custody?
Thank you, I'll answer that. No, it is not a standard practice. What happens on any given trip, of course, is dictated by the totality of the circumstances of that specific transport, but no, it's not a standard practice, to answer your first question. In regard to your second question, which is what are the policies around transporting individuals in police custody, the policy provides that in regard to the time of transport, that the prisoner must arrive at the detention facility within 2 hours. In addition to that, the policy provides that the transporting officer has a reasonable duty of reasonable care for those in his or her custody based on the totality of what's occurring. As the chief mentioned earlier, we're working with 21CP, the national consulting firm, to look at all of our policies and procedures. And of course, these would be encompassed within that.
I just have a follow-up question to that. Just want to make sure that I have a clear understanding. So the 2 hours, they have to be at the detention facility within 2 hours. Once the transport vehicle arrives at the detention facility, is there a certain amount of time that they're left alone on that transport? Do you bring everybody off at one time, or are people still on the van while you're checking in other people? There will allow for people on the van to use something that they may still have on them or put their life at risk, trying to get rid of something that they don't want to be discovered. Is anybody watching them, essentially on the van from the moment they arrive at the detention facility?
You look by yourself.
Yes. So when they arrive at the detention facility, they're pulled into a Sally Port, and at that point, they're offloaded by county detention officers. So at that point, they become their prisoners and in their custody. So they're unloaded at their will in the Sally Port. They make the decision on how those prisoners are unloaded.
Like Lisa Edwards?
So there's a possibility
Right,
that they would be,
That's what this sounds like.
it's based on how they unload. So there's a possibility some people may be waiting, other people are being brought into the.
It's both departments, both.
Are there any additional questions for file 6 before we move forward? File number 7, Internal Affairs Case 21-2854. Why is consensual sex with a person involved in an investigation not a violation of rules?
Come on now. That's the obvious.
Messing with corrupt people.
And I will answer that question also, and thank you for asking it. Consensual sex with an involved person. An involved person is a term of art. Involved can mean a lot of different things. In this particular case, the facts and circumstances were that the person the officer engaged in sexual acts with consensually was not involved in the case. She knew someone who was involved in the case. Typically, when we're talking about involved from a criminal justice perspective, we're talking about the subject, who's the subject of the criminal investigation. Sometimes you'll hear the term target of the criminal investigation, or it may be a witness. But in this context, although involved is used in the question, the woman was not determined to be involved in that specific investigation. This is what is called fraternization.
Any additional questions on this file before we move forward? File number 8, Internal Affairs Case 22-2872. Does a citizen have to complain before a use of force is investigated? In this case, was the use of force justified? If so, please explain.
So I'll answer that question too. No, a citizen is not required to complain before use of force is investigated. Our policy in General Order 1.6 requires that officers report all uses of force, and they have to complete the report under specific circumstances. That includes that there is an apparent injury to a suspect, the suspect complains of injury even if one is not apparent to the officer. If the force was sufficient that it requires medical attention, or a request for medical attention is made by the suspect, any less lethal force was actually used, not merely displayed, and any empty hand hard technique. So under those circumstances, the report would be required. The the officer has to immediately notify an on-duty supervisor of the use of force and request that that supervisor respond to the scene. The responding supervisor that shall respond is required to respond to the scene and start a review of the process. In addition to that, supervisors are required to investigate use of force and forward those through the chain of command for higher level supervisory review. And the Office of Professional Standards is an additional set of neutral eyes that also reviews the body camera footage to assess the circumstances surrounding the use of force.
So you govern yourself.
Yep. That's why you gotta go Andy Thompson Jr.
It's a
The
brotherhood.
next question, I thought standard operating procedures for stops of vehicles with more than one person in the vehicle usually required 2 patrol cars. This incident seemed to begin at an escalated level, judging from Officer Rizzo's excited, aggressive demeanor. And he seemed immediately outmanned. 3 people in the car, 1 was able to escape. It would seem that he should have waited for backup to approach the vehicle in order to arrest the teenager. Am I misunderstanding the standard operating procedure?
The standard operating procedure does not require that multiple officers respond. In this particular situation, when the officer was interviewed by the Office of Professional Standards, he reported that in assessing the situation that he was faced with in real time, that waiting on another officer to arrive was not a feasible option. The officer knew that the subject in the vehicle had warrants, and he made a decision to approach the vehicle while it was stopped to avoid being in a situation where there could be a chase and other members of the public could potentially be at risk.
Was there any reprimand for the search of this child?
The officer received a counseling, and that was documented in writing.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Was the sister questioned at all about the age of the child?
My understanding is the mother provided the information regarding the age of the child. The sister was the suspect who was at the scene.
Was anyone questioned about the age of the child?
The mother, yes ma'am, I just answered that one. Yes ma'am, the mother provided that information.
Did the officer seek out a female officer?
Nope. I want to address that by pointing out what our general order provides on that regarding transport of prisoners. It's General Order 2.3, and it does not require that a female officer be present or conduct the search of a female suspect. It is desirable, and if one is available and if safety allows to wait, an officer may choose to do so. But safety is the first priority, and a female officer is not required to do the search. And the officer is not expected to jeopardize their safety or others on the scene in order to wait for a female officer.
See, I learned nothing from Trinity Clark, absolutely nothing.
Did anyone interview the off-duty officer who stopped to assist in this case?
The off-duty officer was contacted, but it was revealed that he did not see any of the search or the alleged assault, and therefore the information that he could provide would not be valid to the subject of the complaint.
Of course not.
Are there any additional questions on this case before we move forward?
Yeah, the public has some questions.
File number 9, Internal Affairs Case 22-2884. Is this situation and the subsequent resignation likely to keep him from seeking employment with law enforcement in the future?
Didn't the chief?
Yeah, Ms. Belton doesn't answer me yet. Let's hear something from you, man.
So in Tennessee, police officers are required to maintain certification. That certification determinations are made by Tennessee Post, not us. So that's something that would be, that's really for the Post Council. I do know that in this case, this is an alcohol-related offense. If an employee is if someone's trying to seek employment in the state of Tennessee as a police officer, and and they have an alcohol-related offense, they specifically have to request a waiver from Tennessee Post. But that's not a determination we would make, that's a determination that Tennessee Post would make.
State law.
So this is for clarification. If I was a police officer who was discharged from KPD and I went to Oak Ridge Police Department, you're saying they do not require any, not require, but is there no feedback from KPD on my performance?
No, it's a brotherhood.
So the question is would Oak Ridge would be required to contact us?
Well, like most jobs, if you had a career, I would say, it's not just a job, but careers where you have, okay, you were at, and I'm just using this is obviously fictitious for sake of argument, 3 years here, and it ended abruptly. Would they not, and they see on your record, or you were a police officer in Knoxville for 3 years and it ended abruptly, would they not in turn inquire, well, what, do they not pull a service record from KPD? I don't know how it happens.
In almost every case they would, but the main thing here though is, police officers have to be certified by Tennessee Post, right? So if someone left us, like in this case, this was an alcohol-related offense, they could not become a police officer anywhere in the state of Tennessee without getting a waiver approved by Tennessee Post.
And I guess in addition to the waiver that you spoke of by the accreditation agency, is there something internal within KPD that says, like if I were to work most jobs, I say he is not a rehire. Is there something to that effect in a person's jacket or whatever language is used when they leave under these type of circumstances?
So if someone contacted us, obviously if they're applying, hypothetically to Oak Ridge, we don't know that, right? But if they contact us, then we would say they resigned under investigation. That's what we would say.
And that's the new policy?
That's correct.
Okay. And by definition, that's not positive. That's not a positive endorsement of this person, correct?
Obviously,
it's not for you to say, of course.
I wouldn't think so. If we were looking to hire someone and we call up and said, hey, did Jared work for you? Like, yeah, he resigned while under investigation. Well,
That's what you did.
Let me just ask another question. Maybe
That's how he got his job.
would KPD hire someone who resigned under investigation from another agency?
I don't like hypotheticals, but it's not something we're looking at.
Yeah, and I don't mean to put you on the spot about that, but just as a general thing, that would not be a positive mark in someone's record.
That would be a big red flag.
He was New Orleans. That's literally what he did, Jerry. He did that. Just for that's his own job.
As a thought exercise, what would be the discipline handed down
But I'm a
for
Parc.
this case? And would substance abuse counseling be considered or required?
So substance abuse counseling, we do have that. It's available to all employees. It is something we can mandate. I don't really want to get into a hypothetical of what I would have given in this case. This case wasn't fully investigated. I don't know all the circumstances, but I will say that matters like this are very, very serious.
Is there any way to incorporate a change in policy that revokes resignation until the closure of pending IAU matters? This seems to be a recurrent issue with officers who are guilty of infractions.
The RUI policy covers this, but we can't tell someone that they can't quit this job, right? We can't force someone not to quit. They have the ability to quit as they want. But that's why we have the RUI process in place, is that if someone leaves while they're under investigation, whether they retire to avoid investigation or they resign to avoid that investigation, that tag will remain on their record here forever. That covers this.
Any additional questions before we move forward? File number 10, Internal Affairs Case 22-2881. No questions were asked regarding this case. File number 11, Internal Affairs Case 22-2877. No questions were asked regarding this case. File number 12, Internal Affairs Case 22-2887. No questions were asked regarding this case. And this concludes the case matters addressed by the committee. Is there any committee business that needs to be presented today?
I've got something when you're finished. I typically don't do this, but I feel like it would be appropriate for the board to, committee to remember and note the passing last week of Bernard Bernstein. Mr. Bernstein was a longtime partner with Bernstein, Sterry McAdams, and he served as the chairman of the task force, the commission that was appointed by Mayor Ash that led to the creation of Parc. And I just think it would be appropriate for Parc to note that, being his passing in the meeting.
Thank you for that. Is there any additional committee business? Then at this time, we will move forward with the public forum.
All right, this is our part where we have our community forum, our public forum, pardon me. And we're gonna go in order of those who signed up to speak. And if you require the microphone,
We're going to put it right here.
okay, we'll put it over here for you if you require it. If not, feel free to just expound yourself and we'll hear you. And the first person on our list is Michael Goins. And again, that's 5 minutes, and I'll start when you start talking, sir.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank God for being here. And thank some of my ancestors here, Pete Newton, Bobby Seals, Bobby Hutton, Elder Cleaver. They were the first oversight seaboard for police advisory type deals. And to say nothing is to do nothing. So I'm here speaking for myself and for others who can't speak for themselves. Because the police always have a way of mistreating people. They just do it naturally, that's how I feel. So, and then I had another question for the police chief or whoever wants to answer. Why do y'all transport people to Knox County Detention Center? Why is that? Anybody want to answer that? Don't they have their own jail? Knox City doesn't have a jail?
They plead the fifth.
So that seemed like a little bit counterproductive to send our citizens to a county jail who a sheriff is asking for raises for his deputies. So if we stop arresting people for minor incidents, probably wouldn't be, the sheriff would have to ask for raises.
That's what Big Mama Charm on.
I think that's all I got.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
I can address that real quick. The Knox County Sheriff's Department is, by law, the Knox County Sheriff is the individual statutorily, constitutionally required to accept prisoners in the state of Knox County. So he's the one who's required by law to take and maintain prisoners that are arrested by law enforcement. So that's just where you.
So you saying that all can be changed?
The general assembly changed that.
You just said it could be changed, you said it was a law. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir, for that. And next is Tyler Gibbons.
ready, but I also got some other comments, so I'm gonna try to rush through them real quick. First, 2 of the pillars we skipped in the 21 pillars. Pillar 11 says that you shouldn't have police in school, to remove police from schools because they criminalize school children.
That's right.
And pillar 12 is that we should limit police access to military hardware through the 1033 program, which our police department has a tank through the 1033 program and a lot of military-grade assault rifles. So those pillars I thought were important and shouldn't be skipped. Second, I had a question about the search versus the pat-down for weapons. The pat-down for weapons is for safety. A search when you're going in somebody's pockets and stuff like that, that implicates the Fourth Amendment. That's a little bit beyond the pat-down for safety, but I don't know enough about the details in that case. And then the last thing I want to point out before I get to my speech is that KPD has a $75 million budget this year, round number, I'm not sure if that's exact. AEDs on Amazon are $2,400 a check just a minute ago. So even like a high quality one might be $5,000 or $6,000. I think we can afford it in our $75 million budget.
Absolutely.
So thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. During the pandemic, violent crime spiked across the United States, and Knoxville was no exception. This last year marked the beginning of a return to pre-pandemic levels, which aligns well with what sociologists would predict happened during this pandemic. Our local, state, and federal governments allowed a health crisis to become an economic crisis for working class people, and that economic crisis drove up crime. Now that crime is relaxing, the crisis is relaxing, and violent crime is predictably down in Knoxville and across the nation. Now, Chief Noel has claimed that the recent decrease in violent crimes in Knoxville is due to his organizational changes as chief. However, evidence of this claim is pretty thin. However, the increasing violent crime trend is no consolation for those harmed here in our community by the continuing epidemic of gun violence that has overwhelmingly impacted minority youth in our city. So over the past couple years, KPD has implemented a violence interruption program and a mental health co-response unit. Neither of these programs follows nationally recognized best practices. Both involve police officers as first responders rather than being community or health provider-led approaches. Police officers are trained to dominate and control and very strictly obey the law.
But they violated themselves.
Absolutely. Other cities have had great success by removing officers from situations that do best with a more delicate touch and don't require that kind of force. Yet our police budget continues to swell. In 2019, the police operating budget was $59 million. In just 4 years, that budget has grown to $77 million, an increase of 30%, but our number of sworn officers has not increased. This also doesn't include a $40 million allocation for a new police department headquarters, nor the $20 million cost overrun for that construction, nor the additional cost recently approved to build out a surveillance center with live camera feeds and access to internet-connected home surveillance cameras like frames on people's doors around here. So this budget also does not include the cost of legal counsel and settlements to defend officers from misconduct claims. In 2022, KPD settled 2 lawsuits awarding the maximum of $300,000 to the family of Mauricio Luna, who was killed when 3 officers fed down Kingston Pike without lights and sirens. Trinity Parc was also awarded $150,000 for assault and battery by an officer. Cody Klingman and Joseph Roberts were allowed to resign or RUI. They were not terminated, and so they are eligible for hire other departments, unless they check with Knoxville and give them a bad call. But they take those waivers. Lawsuits are still pending. The death of Anthony Thompson Jr. and Lisa Edwards. The city has struggled with a quote-unquote officer shortage for years. Recruitment and retention has been difficult, and to combat these issues, the department has invested in social media marketing, promotional vehicles, aggressive recruitment at public events, and the cadet program, as mentioned tonight. None of this has worked, because the real issue in our police department is cultural, and cultural change is what is needed to make good people want to be police officers. Accusations of racism and sexism have plagued this department, with multiple senior leaders retiring early after investigations into misconduct, and Chief Noel has done little to change this culture. His new command staff was entirely white. I'm glad to see a new addition. And Knoxville is 25% non-white. You're still not very representative here. The staffing shortage has also led to massive amounts of overtime for existing officers, and while many officers appreciate the extra income from overtime work, there are serious performance issues for overworked officers. Studies from other departments have shown that longer shifts and overtime lead to increase in use of force incidents, ethics complaints, and other officer violations. Overtasked officers are not able to do their job properly, and excessive overtime directly harms the public. So I would suggest that we seek more alternatives to policing, an alternative response team. This proposal has been put forward by lots of local groups. There'll be a resolution supporting that at the next city council meeting, and thank you very much for the time.
You made Mr. Calling as an auctioneer. Very impressive, very impressive. And thank you for all of that insight and your opinion. Thank you. Next is Constance Everett. Give me 1 second, please, start.
No worries. I'm never nice, stop it. All right. Yes, so I'm just gonna piggyback right off of the title. So yes, welcome Ms. Bell. However, the reality is that you have definitely stepped into a mess pile. The reality is that as Tyler's already highlighted, to me, I'm gonna be honest with you, it comes off as a black-face white supremacy because as it's already pointed out, this is an all-white staff. Matter of fact, as has been highlighted, Trinity Clark, who was one of the victims of a sexual assault by this very police department staff, is the officer and his command staff saw the same exact video that a judge saw who deemed it as not only horrific, but is one of the driving forces behind the officer being charged for his crimes. It sat there, saw the same tape, and on documented record, under her investigation stated she saw nothing wrong with the incident. So please be aware of the factors of what you're really dealing with in the department, including some of those members back there behind you who you're not working on your task force. I trust none of them. Literally, there are issues with every last one of them being a part of your command staff. So please be aware of what you're really being a part of. But more importantly, what I want to highlight is what is already talked about, the violence interruption program, the other alternative response issue. They literally were warned numerous times by myself and Councilwoman Amelia Parker that the way that the program was constructed, the lack of metric, the lack of standard, the lack of policy, the lack of data, the lack of strategic planning, literally was nothing more than a risk to these men's lives. And I would be damned have you not actually done it, and you have killed a violence interrupter, who on top of that was a veteran. And it's due to the negligence of this department and the constant continuous behavior that we are continuously seeing done by people such as Paul Noel. Let's not forget Knoxville. He was hired here behind an unethical, disclosed manner for a public position that our current mayor, Andy Cannon, promised us was going to be a public process, and yet we have still got a liar in our position, and more importantly, taxpayers' dollars wasted in a legal process in where she tried to defend the unethical practices thanks to Knoxville News Signal challenging the process in the first place. So the reality is, Park, is that you all need to be more aggressive, because I sat here and listened to a second case of what sounds like Robert Bailey all over again. It is unexcusable, it is not acceptable, and let's not forget Lisa Edwards that the whole world has watched happen at this point. It is unacceptable what is happening in Knoxville Police Department, and that is why I am running Knoxville once again, because I know that you're going to have an alternative response program. It should be made up of mental health and clinical specialists like what Park has been offering us. Let's hope Tuesday we can get Park across the table. I have been suggesting that in the violence interruption program, it should be the retired gang members of the 90s and the 2000s who knows exactly the conditions of these streets and what these children are dealing with. That has been neglected in the North, and like I said before, you murdered a veteran for absolutely zero reason, Paul Noel, and that is why Knoxville, the one most important terminations of my career as a mayor, will be firing this man once and for all and getting the trash up out of our police department once and for all again. I am a clean house campaign, and as I said before, I promise you, Knoxville, Paul Noel will no longer be a part of this city. I yield my time.
Corrupt.
You out of here.
Corrupt.
You out of here.
Very corrupt.
Vote for me, Knoxville. He is out of here along with the
Teaching
rest
your
of them.
officers to lie, you're corrupt.
We'll keep the black lady. The rest of y'all go.
Everyone else is signed. So, next up is
You out of here.
Roach. Mr. Roach.
Trash, trash, and more trash. Murder children, more white women. What have y'all not done? Literally.
They're liars.
Okay. Point of, Mr. Mills, thank you for notifying us about that. I remember when that...
Stop being apologetic. We ain't got time for that.
I remember when that committee was formed. Okay? But the reason that they were formed was because we had to have a group called CPR, Citizens for Police Review. CPR. Because the majority black community centered in Canfield, Lonsdale, and East Knoxville was under siege. Okay? I saw it every day. Okay? And the problem was internal and external, and the police were oppressive. How many police officers have been truly convicted and dealt with in a criminal fashion when they did criminal acts?
They get paid in Knoxville to go home and take a vacation when they kill people on camera.
One that I know of.
Okay? See, CPR back in the day had to travel behind the patrol cars and videotape. Got threatened. I did a couple of ride-alongs. It was fun. Okay? Let's get the reality set. Okay? Because city of Knoxville ain't gonna do nothing unless they're forced to do it. And I know that there's some good people in law enforcement and on the police force.
No.
I just had a situation where someone that I care about needed help, and you're trying to do that. And I appreciate that. But at the same time, we're too busy letting ourselves get knocked upside the head, being over-policed 24/7. Okay? Skewing the numbers. We've got an economic problem right now, still in East Knoxville, that you can't speak to. And I told you before, you are nothing more than the enforcer of policy. And you may have some input on policy. I don't know. Okay? But mainly your job is to enforce policy, not even to enforce the law, it's to enforce policy. And right now the policies for the city of Knoxville are oppressive for particular groups of people. And y'all know what we're talking about. Okay? So until the policy change, you guys are gonna be, y'all ain't even treading water. You're going down, you're sinking. And until you all can speak to that, and I don't think you have the capacity to speak to that, okay? Especially when, as a leader, you come in under suspect conditions. You can't speak to me. It invalidates you. It truly invalidates you.
Yes, a lot.
Googling.
We have, the mayor just said it straight up. We're going to have this open, transparent process. Oh, what? We're going to get all this input from the citizens. And what happened?
Attack Z.
Okay? The process was shut down. She already knew what she was doing. So we have this dishonesty in place. And that's who you're working for. And that's who you're saying is, okay. If you want to say that to her, if I was you, I'd go back to her today and I'd say, listen, I got hired into a mess.
He was
and it's a dung heap.
He signed a disclosure.
It's a dung heap. That's what it is. Okay? And then all the good officers that have tried to make it work, who have been intimidated and gotten rid of,
30 seconds.
okay, and gotten rid of, they did the smart thing. They got away from it. They got away from the department. And the ones that are still working and trying to do the job, man, I feel for you. I feel for you. But bottom line is, until people start speaking up and standing up and doing the right thing, nothing's going to change.
It's get worse. Ain't no such thing as good cops. They don't turn into bad ones.
Thank you, Ms. Rose, for that. And our next public speaker will be Tina Parks.
You need a chair? crazy, like, she could have been Lisa Evans. This is wow.
You can feel free to sit if you like, ma'am.
I think.
Like, what's up? She could be Lisa Evans.
Okay.
Use the mic too.
I am going to piggyback on what all the other speakers said. First thing I want to mention is where I came in late. The other members are not here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I read a newspaper article where the public was cautioned, this is a quote, cautioned not to become complacent with the changes that are happening with Parc because of what happened in Nashville with our governor, which I don't understand that. The reason he gave was to make all the cities across the state uniform. Well, if he wanted to really do that, he should have given you all more, not taken away from Nashville, not taken away from Memphis, not taken away from Chattanooga. That just makes sense to me. It would have been a lot easier if that was truly his intent, but I know that wasn't, and you know that wasn't. Everybody in this room knows that that wasn't. It's hard to, okay, look at the folks, the friends that are here tonight. How can the community not be complacent when, look at the friends that are here. Do you all not have somebody on your, with you that is in charge of some kind of community outreach, some kind of advertising, some kind of making sure that the community knows what you're doing and that the community can come here and listen to you all and speak to you all, Chief Noel and all the others?
He on his cell phone, she talking to him.
Okay.
He's paying you no mind.
Zero.
So, I taught kindergarten for 29 years. I'm going to say this one more time, Chief Noel.
No phones at
Thank
the
you.
table.
When I taught kindergarten, one of the first things I taught my babies, when you're talking to somebody, you make eye contact with them. You look at somebody when you're talking with them. Back in those days, there were no cell phones to be distracted by and whatever, but there was manners and there's still manners. There's a bunch of things I wrote down here. Not feasible for two officers in a wagon. What does feasible mean? Does that mean there's not enough money or not enough training? That's got to be taken care of. There's got to be more than one person in those transports. What if the transport, what if there's a flat tire on the way out to the detention center? And what if it takes more than 2 hours to get that flat tire fixed? What happens to those friends in the back there when that's happening? And why isn't there some kind of person in that vehicle with some medical training? That just does not make sense at all. I mean, and to say that we don't have defibrillators, I go to St. Luke's Episcopal Church, East Knoxville, 5 Points, corner of Selma and Chestnut, across from Parc, where some of the violence that Mr. Roach spoke to occurred back in the 90s, that he witnessed while you all were here. But we, as small and as old and as we have the capacity to have a defibrillator, then why the hell does the police department not have that?
20 seconds.
They worried about military.
Park's mission is to provide community members of the city of Knoxville to the oversight, discipline, policies, procedures of KPD. I think if more people knew why you want to do that, then maybe some of these questions could finally get some answers. And I hope some of you are at the City County building Tuesday night to support Councilperson Amelia Parker
You got two city council people here right now.
and the alternative response team, Hart. I hope that some of you are there. Where is our community? Where is our city council person? Who is here?
I don't mean to interrupt you, ma'am, but I want to be respectful of everyone else's time.
I hope that you all can take the comments too.
I mean, it's laughable to urge some white women to stay on their game. Like,
We
it's a lot more.
have, next is Elijah Cherry.
Same urban, supposed to get us 70% minority contract, can't even get us that. They don't come here with a parade around with their policies and pills and all the crap. They send the white women on top of that.
Hello, everybody. I don't have much of a great speech like the others speakers have.
Negative, speak the truth.
But I was recently pulled over, and I feel like I got a bit stereotyped. I'm a young black man with dreads, driving a Cadillac. I got recently pulled over. 3 police officers got out of the cruiser, and they called for backup. The SUV, 4 other officers came, got handcuffed. After I got searched and everything, they sat me on the rail on the interstate. 4 of them searched my car, broke my dashboard, I guess trying to look to see if I had drugs or guns or anything of that nature. I just feel like that was a bit,
Overboard?
Yeah.
Been black in America? Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like that was a bit extreme. I feel like my dashboard didn't need to be broke up just to see if there were any drugs or anything.
So the dogs for it.
So I just honestly just got questions like, why did it have to go to that extreme? Why did I have to get put in handcuffs and feel like if I was to put my hands in my pocket, I was going to get shot? That's how I honestly feel. Why did 7 officers have to come just for a meeting?
Operation 313, bro.
A traffic stop.
So that's honestly all I really have to say.
If you want to stay after, I'd be happy to have someone talk to you about that. I don't have the answers now, obviously. I don't know about it, but I'll be happy to get some research and find
Thank you. And if I can add something, sure. Have you made a complaint with the park or?
Honestly, it's all happened so fast. I wasn't thinking about badge numbers or anything. Cause like I said, 7 officers, 1 black guy. I mean,
Sure. But I'm glad you shared that, because that is the crux of why we're here. We're here to ensure that every citizen is treated with respect, professionalism, and I can't speak to the direct nature of your situations. I don't know the details, but I would encourage you, as the chief offered, to put a report together, and it will be investigated, and then we will review it here. So thank you.
Thank you.
What's your name again, sir?
Elijah.
What's your last name?
Cherry, like the fruit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elijah. Yeah, can I attend that meeting with you afterwards? I'll be right there with you. Thank you.
All right, and lastly on the list here is Les Gooden. Les Gooden.
Dude's all right, bro.
Your time to start with this speech.
Well, I don't have much of a speech. I didn't even know this committee existed until 2-3 days ago. The public needs to have a way to talk to you people, because just a few of us that's here, that ain't enough. This should be broadcast on our news channels, everything. This stuff they just had with Lisa Edwards, there is no way that 90% of what happened that day is anywhere close to legal. If it was you or me that did the same thing to that woman, these officers would be arresting us for cruelty to an elderly person. Neglect because we didn't get that person health care. That sat and begged and begged and begged and begged for 2-3 hours, whatever it was. We have officers that claim they don't have any medical knowledge, but yet they have the knowledge to claim that Lisa Edwards could get out of that wheelchair and walk. And she was paralyzed on the left side of her body. They said she didn't need an inhaler because she couldn't breathe. But the very wheelchair they took her out of had an oxygen bottle right on it. So there's no way that they did not know these things. They say that they didn't have to take her to the hospital because they already said that she didn't have a problem. Anybody with half a mind can see that woman had problems. If they can't take her in that hospital, call an ambulance for her and let her go somewhere else. UT's 5 miles away, 10 miles away, whatever it is. It's not 3-4 hours. The police are supposed to protect and serve the public. Throwing them down on a cold cement floor is not protecting the people. This is an old woman that begged for her life. The last 2-3 hours of her life were in your officer's custody. I don't care what you put out in the public. We all listen to body cam, and we listen to Lisa Edwards gurgle on her last breath as she passed out in the back of the car. We watched your officer pick her up by her hair like a dead animal on the street and just drop her. If I was to do that to one of your officers, you would arrest me in a blink for cruelty to a human being, whatever. You want more officers to join the police force? I'm retired Air Force. We have a thing called integrity in the military, especially within our security forces. Why does our police department have no integrity? I had a friend just in court today. An officer of this department was on the stand for a traffic ticket. The question was asked, do you lie? This officer said, not when I'm under oath. So if he's not under oath, he can lie all day long. That's a crime. Our police are to be at a higher standard. You're to lead by example. You want people to join your force. Anybody that has any respect for their name will not go into a corrupt organization. And that's exactly what Knoxville Police is. KCSO just arrested 4 people for neglect of an elderly person and denying her medical care. Why did you not do the same thing to the officers that did that to Lisa Edwards that day? That's not very much leadership. And if nothing is done, you give them a 90-day vacation while you sit and investigate whatever yourselves, instead of an outside organization coming in and doing the investigation. If an officer shoots somebody, or a death happens that way, an outside organization comes in. Why is there not Lisa Edwards? Why is she ignored? It's a clock. You give them a 90-day vacation, and then we're going to slap them on the wrist with 3 and 4 days suspension. Hell, I'll take a 90-day vacation any day to lose 4 days pay.
30 seconds.
For murder. You should be ashamed of yourself, Chief.
All right, thank you, sir. Clearly, there are a lot of sensitive topics discussed today. In my opinion, this is the forum for it. Being professional law enforcement, they're here to hear you. I don't know if you want to respond to any of that or not. That's up to you, Chief.
The only thing I was...
No response just shows you don't care what the public thinks.
Well, let's give them a chance to answer this.
That was investigated by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations.
Did you hear him, sir?
What was?
The incident was investigated by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations.
Okay.
It all kept under wraps, right?
Well,
If I treat your officer the same way Lisa Edwards was treated, would you arrest me?
we're gonna hear our rules of decorum, sir. And he did answer your question, that it was investigated by an outside agency. Of course, we're not here to resolve any specific case. We're not here to try cases or anything of that nature. We're here to communicate. So that communication obviously works both ways. So I will never tamp down or ask anyone not to be as passionate about our city as you are. I appreciate your passion, sir. But at the same time, we need to give the officers and this department a chance to respond to our questions and our concerns. So I thank you for your time.
You definitely like a response.
Yes, sir. And I'm sure he'd be willing to talk to you after this if you have any further, questions besides that. I'm going to move, that concludes, our public forum. And I'm going to move into any sort of community updates. Do you have any community updates? All right, seeing none, I'm going to pass it to Star for our adjournment. Maybe.
Now you take your time.
If there is nothing further, then we will adjourn our meeting for this evening. Thank you all so much for being in attendance today.